What happened in Canada? Why did Cardi win? Well, I think Yuri Bezmenov has some answers for us. He pretty much explained everything that's happened to the West writ large over the last, 40 years. Canada's no exception. I think Canada fell for it worse than anybody for a number of reasons. Never bother with leftists. Government is corrupt. Forget these useful idiots. They've been programmed to think and react a certain way. You cannot change their mind, even if you shower them with undeniable facts. Yuri Bezmenov was right. Canada is filled with these useful idiots. So, what would cause people to vote for the same party that had been making their lives progressively worse for the better part of a decade? And all of the rhetoric from the new face of the party was the same. It's just a different face. In fact, it was the same, but promising more. So how does that happen? I mean, you'd think that people would not be stupid enough to just vote for more of the same policies that had been wrecking their lives. I think clearly it comes down to political fashion to a large extent. It just comes down to there's a word that people have been socially engineered to not like, to feel a distaste for. The word is conservative, and it doesn't really matter what's behind that word, what policies are behind it. It could be, you could use that word to describe totally woke progressive policies, but if that word's in front of it, they won't like it. They'll think it's mean. Like what's behind what the word is describing doesn't even actually matter. It's just the word. And I think that's why so many Canadians were so ready to just jump back on the liberal bandwagon again the second they had a new face, because they weren't going to vote conservative. All right, let's take a look at what Yuri has to say.
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
And obviously the Soviet, he's talking about the Soviet active measures, right? It meant to undermine and demoralize the United States. Obviously that is spread from the United States. It's just it took over the academic institutions and then spread to the entire Western world, clearly, because leftist politicians in every single Western country all believe the exact same thing. They're totally interchangeable. But let's continue.
Country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years?
Yeah, and with demoralization, he's not talking about like making them like depressed or apathetic. He's talking about actually removing their morals, the basic moral foundation of a society. And if there's any question, if you have any question whether or not like Canada has been demoralized, well, let's see. You've got the very, very liberal drug policies. So we have something called harm reduction in Canada now, which is literally the government giving free drugs, free meth to addicts. You have progressives that are very happy to step over the bodies on the way to get their chai latte at the Starbucks in the morning, right? And call it progressive and empathetic. The Canadian drug policies. You have a more than an order of magnitude increase in overdose deaths and all the attendant crime and just basic family tragedy that comes along with all of that, right? And there is no appetite, apparently, judging from the last election, to do anything about that other than just more of the same. And there's nothing more far left radical than sex changes for children, which in Canada, I mean, that's just the law of the land. A counselor, a doctor, psychiatrist, you can't even, if you've got a 12-year-old who comes into your office and says they're confused and they have gender dysphoria, it's actually illegal in Canada to suggest there may be a different reason for their discomfort. That's called conversion therapy in Canada. Okay? This is beyond moral confusion. Okay? I think you can call it demoralization, absolutely. demonizing capitalism, essentially, with Mark Carney talking about he's going to tax, he's going to make those polluters pay. He's talking about Canadian industry. He's going to make them pay. Of course, that's just par for the course with any leftist movement. Climate hysteria, radical climate hysteria. Mark Carney, of course, is going to be the most climate hysterical prime minister, even more so than Justin Trudeau, at the expense of Canada and everybody in it. Of course, we've seen the insane censorship bills during the Trudeau years. We've got Mark Carney promising more of that, talking about how social media is really the enemy, promising to resurrect Bill C-63, the insane dystopian censorship law with pre-crime, where you can be punished for things you haven't actually done, but some activist judge thinks you might. Life in prison for doing a hate online, as well as other even more or just as dystopian Orwellian lunacy. So free speech is no longer a value in Canada. In any case, let's continue.
Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism.
This was in the 80s. That's why it's so bad now, because it's just marched on, unopposed.
The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior.
Hey, is he talking about the CBC there? I think he is.
In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people.
You know, there are people where and I've talked to them, and there's just no going back. They are totally resistant to reality at this point. They have been totally parasitized by an idea pathogen. And it is he's saying that you can't get rid of them, right? You can never change their minds. Well, we do have to go through a process of, the people that are totally resistant to basic freedom, and you can even say just basic liberalism or classical liberalism, right? We do have to go through a period of just transitioning that out. And how do you do that? I think that you just have to deny them money. So universities just should not be getting public funds if they are teaching totally insane, illiberal, far leftist gibberish that has no bearing on reality. If they're trying to teach an ideology that they don't seek to fit it into the world, they seek to fit the world into it, and they're happy to break the world in the process. Why should they be getting people's money? So, I mean, I think that's really the only way you can do it is just through defunding these institutions, right? I mean, if only we could have defunded the CBC in Canada, that just would have made an immediate improvement. Rosie says, MAID, that's one we forgot. MAID, another one. For depression, medical assistance in dying. So the government killing people, and the Trudeau government has, of course, expanded it now to literally just depression or drug addiction. Maybe you're depressed because you're addicted to drugs. Well, they've got a solution for you. It's a final solution. So I have to remind you about the veteran who wanted a stair lift. They said, best we can offer you is death. So again, that's another great example of demoralization. Not that you're bummed or that you're apathetic, but you just have no morals anymore. They've just been removed. You've just become an immoral society. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.